traveling because time slows down
Yes.
when you get out of your routine, right? If the most valuable commodity we have is time, the only way to trick time is to break your routine. So that, I got goosebumps just saying that.
Yeah.
That's the trick. So that's my reset.
Thank you for waking up with Happy Ass, where we come together to grow in mind, body, and spirit so we can in turn go out and make the world a brighter and sweeter place to live for ourselves and for others. And today, I'm super excited because this person does make my life brighter and sweeter. And I hope, you, Jason, and a whole lot of other people. But before we even get started, I got to thank my company, Beachy Beach, because they're one of the sponsors and they believe in what I'm doing and they know I'm a happy ass and they want to promote my happy ass. So they're one of the sponsors. So isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
I know. So, Jason, I met you at idea camps, at the college, the comedy, all kinds of places. So tell us where you are right now, but I'm going to kind of figure out how you got there.
Okay. All right. So currently, I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, I know.
Like everybody these days. But so my official job at Gulf Coast State College, I'm the executive director of recruitment and community relations. I've been doing that for about 2 years after 14 years in visual and performing arts. So I was a theater professor for 14 years. And the last 7 of those, I was chair of the department. And so, I've been at Gulf Coast as long as my son has been alive.
Wow.
And so that's my official day-to-day job. And then I'm,
But I think most people, because people don't go to college and go, let me see who's on the wall of the college. Let me see who's working on it. Unless you're at the college or you work there or something, you might not know you. But people know you for something courageous and crazy that you started a few years ago.
Right.
And I'm talking about Panama City Comedy. How the heck did you
I don't know.
get there from there?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm definitely not on the wall at the college anywhere. Unless, I'm definitely not there. But it's Gulf Coast's fault, honest. Justin Butler, who was a former theater student of mine, he started an open mic at Mosey's in 2014, maybe.
Yep.
And he invited me out, and I thought it was going to be a bunch of locals. It was comedy-specific open mic. It was me, my brother-in-law, who I drugged with me, and then a bunch of guys drove over from Tallahassee. They drove over from Tallahassee to tell jokes in the back of a bar. And I thought, these guys are crazier than musicians, because stage time is everything, right? And I got a little bit involved, but then I got busy with other things, with theater at the college, directing shows at the college and everything. And he continued to do maybe one show a month. But then somewhere around June of 2018, he started a late night mic at 10 o'clock, which sounds like a horrible time for most people. But for me, it was perfect because I would leave rehearsal at the college for the plays and it was almost 10 o'clock. So I would go over there. And for whatever reason, I got hooked then. And we have slowly grown. And now we're doing, in October 2024, we have 10 shows, which is dumb idea. This is the wrong month to try to do that. But normally it's 6 to 8. And we partner with other venues. We don't have our own space, so we partner with other small businesses and to bring professional comedy to the area. And it's grown. I never thought I would be, something I wasn't even doing 7 years ago. Wasn't even on my, now consumes a lot of my free time. And I now have a small business as a comedy producer. I just went to a comedy festival in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where they invited me as industry. So somewhere. So you're not on the Gulf Coast wall, but you're industry. I'm on someone's wall. That's bananas. Yeah. I am on a wall at a restaurant at Stripes in Navarre, Florida. I was the first comedian on the wall with my headshot, so I am on a wall. There we go. Shout out to Stripes in Navarre. That's cool. But it's just grown. It's one of those things where But it is theater, right? It is directing. It is producing. It is community relations. It is. So in some ways, it's all the things I've been doing for a long time. And somehow it just took shape with this comedy thing. And it's surprising and hard. And every day I think I'm going to stop doing it. And then another door opens and you're like, oh, well, I guess we're still doing it. You know, when people are inviting you to festivals to incentivize comedians attending those festivals, you're like, okay, I guess maybe we're doing something right.
It's so amazing. I have a personal reason why I love you so much. You've been so supportive of my son, Scotty. You've been one of his main supporters. Yeah. You have really encouraged him and brought him up, and y'all even traveled some together.
Absolutely.
And I will say that if anybody reads y'all's text, they might commit both of you. One more than the other. They're hilarious.
It's true. But us, on a road trip together is pretty funny.
That's really cool. So I love it. But I love it because it's kind of funny, and I don't know when this will come out or before or after Kevin's, but you and Kevin and myself have something in common. We like to try different things. So we don't want to get just caught into one little bubble and not try things. And most things that we've tried, had no clue when we got started. Right. I can't imagine that you one day said, you know what? I have all the knowledge and wisdom to form a comedy club.
Yeah, absolutely not. No. And it wasn't until later that I was able to look back and go, oh, I'm actually reaping the benefits of seeds that were planted years and years ago. And I didn't realize it at the same time. But, there are transferable skills, like on stage. Obviously, I know how to use my voice and my body. But there are also bad habits from the theater. For example, we teach actors. And I know Scotty was a theater student at Gulf Coast for a while. And we actually train actors to ignore the audience in most situations, right? Like this imaginary fourth wall. So I would do that sometimes instinctively, and when the comedy's not going well, the worst thing in the world you could do is pretend they're not there. But that was my training. That was what was in my body, and it's taken me a while to sort of break free from that. But I will say about Scotty, and not just because he lived in your womb for a while. He is brilliant. When Scotty's on, there's nobody better. But here's what's funny. He's sort of like one of those star baseball players. Scotty either hits a home run or he strikes out.
Yep.
There's no middle road. I've never gotten laughs as good as Scotty's gotten. But he also bombs a lot more than I do. Because what he's doing is a lot riskier. And I don't mean necessarily in content, but it's just avant-garde, and it's a lot of brilliant sort of one-liners and just out there. So people either get him right away or they don't get him at all. But when they do, there's no one more exciting to watch.
He's so funny. Oh. But the thing about comedy that I do this. I do podcasts and I speak and do all that stuff. But if you told me I had to get up and tell jokes and be intentional, I think sometimes I'm funny accidentally.
Sure.
But because it's just in my genes. But I could not intentionally be funny.
Right. That is the shift.
I would rather be naked in front of people than stand up and do comedy. I'm telling you, it's so.
Maybe I would get better laughs if I would do that. That would definitely make it.
Oh my God! Just
No, you're right though. I came into it with a bit of an arrogance. Honestly, I was like, my students think I'm funny. My wife used to think I was funny. Like, honestly, this is why I'm doing this, because I'm no longer getting laughs at home. So I have to seek them outside the marriage. Yeah. But no, it's a different thing when you're under the spotlight, because most of us are funny socially and in context and with our friends. But it's different when they put the spotlight on you. It's taken me 6 years to craft 30 minutes of material that's good enough for other people to pay me to do it out of town. And everybody progresses at different levels. And I've done a lot more producing than performing lately, so that's part of it. But yeah, I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I never thought I would be a small business owner, but that's exactly what I am now. I never thought I would be a producer. The first time I ever stepped into a comedy club, I was in my early 40s. I never attended as an audience member. I've lived all over the country. I don't know how I missed it. But if I think back, like in middle school, I wanted to be the class clown. I wasn't quite, but there was nothing cooler than getting the whole class to laugh, you know, or you couldn't get in trouble by the teacher if the teacher laughed, right? Right. So that weird line, you know, I wasn't disrespectful except for, you know, maybe 8th grade, but all the ingredients were there, and it just somehow has come together in a surprising way.
That is so cool. And one thing that's really interesting for those of you who don't live in Panama City Beach or want to come here, this really blows Scotty's mind. See, Scotty was going out to places like, wanted to be in Nashville, wanted to be in California, wanted to be all these places because he thought that's the only way he would get to do comedy.
Right.
And he is blown away. And one of his friends from Nashville that we love so much, Johnny Stone,
absolutely,
leaves Nashville to come here to do his comedy because of what you've created. Yeah. And that is what's so important about mind, body, spirit, about My Happy Ass Life. The whole point of this whole world is find what you're good at doing, do it, and make it so that it betters others. Right. Because if you're just doing it selfishly for yourself, I don't think it's going to really matter. But I think that the comedy scene here is just exploded.
Yeah, it has.
And you can go all the time and hear comedy now.
You can.
In Panama City Beach.
Yeah, you
can. City.
And the biggest compliment we get is when comedians come from out of town and compliment us on the quality of the scene. But again, I blame theater for that. I blame my training as a student at Gulf Coast for that, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Because there's a certain level of professionalism in the theater that wasn't necessarily a given in all comedy situations. And I know that now that I've traveled a little bit. I never understood why comedians were so complimentary. Touring comedians were so complimentary of the way we run things, just from a communication point of view, from a production value point of view. But the reality is it's not like that everywhere. And I was just doing what came naturally to me because of my theater training at Gulf Coast and Emerald Coast Theater Company. I'm a co-founder at Emerald Coast Theater Company and on the board president there. So all these things sort of, coexist for me. Even my recruiting at the college now, right? Walking into a room of potential of high school students or a room of, CEOs, it's the same gig, right? It's just a different script. So I can do what I do at work because of what I do outside of work, right? It's the same skill set and I'm just have different content.
That's so amazing. So we've got a few things in common. Probably we didn't even know we had in common, but I was sharing with you off camera. That sounds so fancy, off camera. I've always wanted to say that. That I was also a recruiter at Gulf Coast for a little while.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was a recruiter at Gulf Coast because I was doing real estate, and it was during the apocalyptic year of 7 and 8 when the phone was not ringing, and I figured if I was going to eat, I was going to have to go do something else also. Which is the year I started at Gulf Coast. That is so wild. That's so wild. So I was a recruiter, loved it, so much fun. And it was easy for me to recruit there because I loved Gulf Coast. Absolutely. I mean, I could be such a PR for Gulf Coast. I started Gulf Coast. I can't remember, it took me 8 years to go through Gulf Coast and FSU, but started when I was pregnant with Sheldon. I did my first exam when I was nursing him in the library. So I learned so much from Gulf Coast. And so I want to talk about a couple of teachers there that people I knew and why I want to talk about them. So I asked you off camera if you knew Joyce Buttermore. And she was there. You said that she had retired when you got there.
I think we had just missed each other, or she was in the process of retiring as I can. Like you, I get fuzzy on the dates. I know her by name and by reputation, and we've met, of course. But we didn't have a relationship as colleagues. Yeah. And she, Joyce Buttermore, she was one of I'm really fun about language arts teachers. Notice that all the people I talked about earlier were language arts teachers that I love so much. But Joyce Buttermore was my language arts teacher. And, here I was, going back to school. I was with my starter husband. Okay. We never had any money.
So I was just trying to make my life better, and I was struggling. I mean, I was driving a $500 car to school.
Yeah.
It was awful. And if it made it to school. And she gave me a book called What Do You Say When You Talk to Yourself? It's by Shed Hemstetler. And she explained to me that was how she had gotten through cancer by really believing and speaking to herself. And she wanted to give that book to me. So she gave me that book, and it helped me so much. And so on the note of that, what do you say when you talk to yourself? Are you pretty good at knowing to talk well to yourself and love yourself and encourage yourself? Or do you sometimes beat yourself up and you have to kind of correct it?
I wouldn't say I beat myself up, but what I'm guilty of is piling too much stuff on the plate so that I don't have to pay attention to those things. My analogy is I feel like mentally, in some ways, probably a lot of us can track it back to around the hurricane time, right? I feel like since then, I'm like that lizard that runs on the lake, and you just run as fast as you can because you're afraid if you stop running, you'll sink. Being that busy has disadvantages, right? Something's going to take a hit. I'm a juggler also, right? As if I wasn't cool enough with comedy. But my buddy's analogy is like, it's true. When you juggle, you're going to drop things. Everybody does. And what he said is like, yeah, you just have to be careful that you don't drop the wrong things. And I have certainly been guilty of dropping the wrong things occasionally. You know, if I were to make a list of the things that I say are most important to me, and then put clock hours next to how much time I spend with those things, the reality isn't in line with what I claim to be true. And my family is probably the ones that suffer the most for Jason doing all of this crazy stuff. Now, they're very supportive, and I'm, like everybody, trying to find balance, but it takes, there's been a couple big missteps. I'm embarrassed to share this one, but I will because it's pretty big. And I think there's a lesson in it. A couple of years ago, I took an out-of-town comedy gig on my son's birthday. I know. It's hard to even say.
I know. I remember you told me this one, so please share it. It's a good story.
Now, I justified it to myself because we had celebrated on the weekend, and his birthday fell midweek. So as I'm driving to Dothan to do this show, the headliner, Henry Cho, who's my comedy mentor, proceeds to tell me proceeds to tell me how he put his career on hold for a decade to raise his kids. Or he told his agent, I can't do shows on Friday. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're a comedian. What do you mean you can't do shows on Friday? He's like, my kids are playing sports. I have to be at the game. Talk about making me feel worse. I'm sitting there in the car. But the reason I said yes is because there's this thing that artists do. A lot of people do, but artists are particularly guilty of this. Feeling like if we say no, other opportunities won't come along. This is ingrained in actors who are like, and maybe musicians and comedians, like, oh, throw me a bone. Like, I'll take it. So I made a selfish decision for fear of not being given other opportunities in the future.
Yeah.
The reality was the very person that gave me that opportunity corrected me. I didn't tell him, by the way, it was my son's birthday, but he's telling me this story and we're driving.
Oh, man.
And my wife, rightly so, called me out after the fact. She let me do it. But afterwards, she let me know. And so I had a lot of sort of makeup to do. So that's a concrete, painful example of a time where it can get out of control if you let it, when there's this momentum. And so I let the wrong people down, right? The reality is Henry would have understood me saying no to that more than anyone because he's always put his family first with his career and has been very successful. Has he missed out on certain opportunities? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, after the show's over, your family is who you're with, and who's most important. So that's the best way I can answer your question.
Yeah. I've had that too, and I think people, I hate to put me, but people that like to do a lot and like to try things in life, and I'm a super achiever. I'm just a super. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram scale. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not, but I just.
No, I was too busy to take the test.
That's what. So I am that, and I'm kind of nerdy about tests and stuff. So I'm lucky, just like you, because your wife is so precious, so calm, so sweet, not dramatic.
No.
You know, she's just super chill. So's your son. My husband was the same way. So my sweet, precious Hugh Smith, he would just say, go do your angel work. He never fussed at me. And I felt very guilty after he passed away, because I remember thinking, you know what? I spent so much time building our business. I quit playing golf for 15 years because my business, I just didn't have time, you know, and there was so many things I missed out on because I was giving more attention to things I shouldn't give attention to. So I don't know. I try not to feel guilty about it, because he loved me just like I was. Your wife loves you just like she is, but she loves you enough to say, hey, listen, let's don't do that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we do that sometimes. But another thing I wanted to mention to you that I love so much is, and listen, this is no slight on FSU, because I'm an FSU grad. I love FSU. But I say all the time that I was so impressed with Gulf Coast that I got such a good education that I did FSU with my brain tied behind my back.
Sure.
And it's because, wow, they really, I don't know why. You know, I mean, they attract amazing professors, amazing staff. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, I do know why.
Tell me why.
Well, part of the reason is, so in academia, there's sort of 3 tiers. So it's like teaching, scholarship, and service, right? And so if you're at a big research one institution, you've heard the expression publish or perish, right?
Yes.
So you've got to be writing books. Well, the faculty at Gulf Coast have a higher teaching load than, say, at a university. And the reason is because they want to focus on teaching, right? So as a theater professor, like at USF, where I did my undergrad, awesome program. But while I was there, it became a research 1-level institution. Our professors had to leave us for weeks at a time to get national directing and acting credits in order to get tenure at the school they were teaching. So it didn't make any sense. At Gulf Coast, the faculty are dedicated and have the time for teaching. That's why most of them are there. It's why most of them chose to work at a 2-year school instead of a 4-year school. I had the exact same experience you did. I tell students when I talk to them, I went to Gulf Coast reluctantly, driving my mom's minivan, mad that I couldn't afford the school in New York and Miami that I got into. But I was blown away by the quality of the experience that I had. My teachers became my mentors. I consider them family. Rosie O'Bork and Rusty Garner.
Oh, gosh. Amazing.
And 10 years later, they brought me back and they hired me. We moved cross country. There was nothing in the world that would have brought me back to Bay County other than to work at Gulf Coast. We literally my son was 14 days old, and we hopped on a plane. My poor wife again. We've got photos of her. She had a C-section, and so we got a wheelchair in the airport, because it was a long hauls, and this is like 2 weeks later. We hung all the bags on her wheelchair. So you look at the photos, it looks like we took, and she's little like you. It looks like we made this poor little lady carry all of this luggage in the airport. But we moved the family cross country, to give the quality of experience that I had, changed my life, to the next generation of students. That's literally what brought me back. Sorry, Gulf Coast, I took a pay cut. I was teaching at a private high school in California. Obviously, cost of living's higher. I took a pay cut to come work at Gulf Coast initially. But it was that important to me. And here's the reality. You started a 2-year school. Especially in fields like music and theater, because we have a healthier resume by the time we graduate. I've got students now that get their first professional credits from Emerald Coast Theater Company before they're a junior in college.
Wow.
You know how cool that looks?
That's so
to have
cool.
been in a professional theater production before
cool.
you're a junior.
Yeah.
So, I was blown away by the experience I had at Gulf Coast, and the only thing that brought me back was to provide that same opportunity. And I hear it over and over from students. Just what you said.
I feel the same. I mean, here I am, 65 years old, and I'm still gushing about how I feel about Gulf Coast Community College.
It's not hard. It's not hard for. We're a state college now.
Yeah, I know.
But to you, it will always be. I know. But we're the community's college.
Yeah, you're still the community's college.
We always will be. It's not hard for me to sell it. Because all I have to do is tell my story or tell your story or tell the story of dozens and dozens of students that I've had along the way. Now, it's not for everybody, right? If you need to root for a football team in person your freshman year, maybe you need to go right to university. But for a lot of students, for financial reasons or for social reasons or just to get sort of a firm academic footing before you transfer to university, we've said it for decades. Start here, go anywhere.
Yeah, I love it. I love that.
And it's absolutely true.
That is so cool. So, speaking of start anywhere, go anywhere, start here, go anywhere.
Yeah.
My podcast, many years, I did not have any sponsors. So I've paid out of my pocket for all this stuff, all these years, 4.5 years. So I thought, I got to start getting some help here. So a couple of people believe in what I'm doing. So one is Bay Tax, and his name is Brian Yorback, and they are tax strategists that teach you, because that's not my spiritual gift. So his company has really helped me. Yeah, you said earlier that you knew better than do your own taxes. You got somebody to help you. Yeah.
I heard you speak at an event about hiring people to do the things you're not good at. And early on, I hired an accountant.
Amen. So Brian,
even though I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, Brian Yormack. He's the guy. He's so great. Bay Tax. So please call him. His number will be in the show notes. And this is the thing. People that sponsor here. Number one, I have to believe in their product. Number one.
Right.
Number two, they're not particularly people who are excited because they think, I'm going to get big money off of being on my podcast. They believe in what I'm doing.
Right.
And they want to support me and all the happy assets. So the other one is Kitty Stewart with the Dream Team, powered by Edge. And she's a mortgage broker. You know the difference between a mortgage broker and a banker?
Nope.
Oh, here, I can educate you. So if you go to a bank can only loan you the products that they have at their bank. Okay? But a mortgage broker can go anywhere almost and get it. So where a bank might have 5 or 6 loans, a mortgage broker will have over 30 plus loans.
Okay.
So if pretty much they can loan to almost anybody in any situation. So that's Kitty, and that's why we're able to do My Happy Ass Life and produce it like we're doing now. So it's pretty exciting. So we talked about college, we talked about Gulf Coast, and we've got some other friends. And one of my friends that I haven't talked about on here yet is Lou Columbus. And you and I were talking about there's some people we really love, like Lou Columbus, Tony Simmons, and Lynn Wallace. So people that Lou Columbus, I met him because he started doing videos for me for thebeatshow.com.
Right.
But I hope you don't mind me sharing this. He really thought that there was no way I could be that sweet. He heard about me and he said, that's got to be fake.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that assume you go home and kick puppies.
Yeah. He said there's no way someone could be that sweet. No way she could be that happy. And then he met me and he realized, you really are. You really are. And we've been friends since, actually, he started in 2008.
Really?
He started helping me do thebeatshow.com.
Okay.
And he, did it for many years until he started going off to St. Pete and stuff. But Lou Columbus is one of my favorite humans. And how do you know Lou? Tell me.
My goodness, I don't remember how I met him. Maybe through mutual friends, maybe through Michael Lister, or maybe through Lynn Wallace, or through Aaron Bearden. A lot of those guys would hang out. But I mean, Lou is he's so smart, and he loves music. He loves art. He loves film. I need people like Lou. For me, I don't know why. There's a quality that Lou Columbus and Lynn Wallace and Tony Simmons, Cher.
Super
Right.
genuine.
Yeah, super genuine, super smart. But they also have a calming effect on me. You know what I mean? Like they're the guys like when they ask you questions like, oh yeah, who would you like? Like there's been rare occasions where I think I've been with them at the same time, but man, there would be nothing cooler than, having a cup of coffee with those three guys. I need more of that kind of stuff in my life because they just give me a perspective. They calm my energy. They're three very reflective people. They're deep thinkers. They're all artists in their own right, in their whatever their own medium is, and I'm attracted to that. You meet me, or and you're like, oh, of course he's an actor or whatever. I'm more attracted to those people who it's a lot more internal.
Yeah, they're kind of behind you. You don't realize it until you
subtle.
see.
I think I like them so much because in a lot of ways, energy level, they're opposite of me in a lot of ways.
Same.
And I think some of the way they carry themselves and the way they think I gravitate towards, which makes me feel like I need to. When we're done here, I'm going to set up. I need to set up a coffee date with those guys.
Well, Lou,
and there are others, but those three, something they have in common.
I used to get to see Lou every week because we would do the show together. We'd go around and film the beach show, and then we would have lunch. We'd have lunch together, and we'd always go try different places and stuff. And he's just a very calm, kind man. But the thing that I've watched happen, which is so cool, I've watched him get super creative with his photography.
Ridiculous.
Like, I love.
Yeah, I hire him.
Love.
I hire him at the college.
I hire him for other things too.
Yeah, he would shoot all of our stage photos, of the productions. So that's when and I hire him all the time for Panama City Comedy. He shoots most of our photos for that. I've hired him for headshots multiple times. He doesn't do family portraits.
I know,
but he did family portraits for my family and I.
One time too.
So we've got him. It's right. It was a few years ago, and I love him. I love him, especially because I know he doesn't do those very often.
Right. He doesn't like to do little kids or a family photo. So he's got to run around and gather together. He likes to be very creative.
My only complaint about Lou is he doesn't charge enough.
He doesn't
for as good as he is.
No, he does not.
Yeah.
He does not.
I have to beg him to invoice me.
I know.
I'm remind him. I'm like,
that's a true
invoice me.
That's a
invoice
true artist.
Me.
Artists are really bad. I have met very few artists. Ashley's over there shaking her head. Artists just want to create.
Right.
And I understand that because I am real. It took me a long time to realize that I was really going to have to find a way to get sponsors on my podcast.
Sure.
But most of my artist friends are not good business people.
No,
they just want to create.
Yeah.
That's why they need to have someone helping them in the business part of it. Because I know I get that way a lot with things. Because I just want to do it. I just want to do it for the love of it. But, we do have to eat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, when did you, how long have you been married? Because you've
25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
in
awesome.
September. Yeah.
You got
crazy.
one son.
I do. Yeah. One and done. Yeah. We have one son.
Very smart.
He's very smart. He's way smarter than me.
Yeah.
He's, thank goodness.
He's kind of, I've only met him a few times, but I can tell he's maybe very dry-witted or very like,
oh yeah, he's
like
way,
he'll sneak up on you with the humor.
Very funnier.
Yeah.
Well, I'm there's only 3 people in my family.
Yeah.
And I'm the 3rd funniest person in the family. The only reason I have any success as a comedian is by going on stage and quoting my family.
Oh, that's awesome.
Easily.
That's so funny.
He's the master of puns. Like, it shocks me. And he's found his jam. Alan Walker, who's a good friend of mine and is a
great
Latin amazing actor.
Alan Walker, yeah.
Talk about a smart guy.
Yeah.
And he is the longtime Latin teacher at Arnold High School.
Wow.
And
I didn't realize he was here.
Yes.
See, Britt graduated
they
with
did
him.
Latin together in high school.
They did Latin together.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And Cameron he's found his people, his group. He's involved in Latin club. They go to competitions. It's checked all the boxes for us for him, like, socially and academically and all the benefits you get from the arts or team sports. And he found it on his own. We were almost to the point where we were going to push him and be like, all right, bud, you got to do something. Because both my wife and I, through either sports or the arts, you want your kids to have those experiences, youth group or whatever it happens to be. And he didn't really have any of those. But my goodness, he found it on his own, and he is just thriving with that. And I'm honored that he gets to study with Alan.
That is so cool. Yeah. So it's funny because I'm not a real sports person, at all. I mean, golf. I love golf, but I'm not a real sports person.
That's not a sport. That's slow men in pants walking.
I want to tell you something. Have you ever played golf?
I know. I'm
it
horrible.
Is so
I'm horrible.
hard.
I know it is. That's a George Carlin joke, by the way.
I know. I do remember George Carlin saying that. So you said your son found
I'm good at putt-putt.
Putt-putt's boring to me.
No, but here's how good at putt-putt I am. You talked about Johnny and Scotty. When we were traveling last summer, they took me to a driving range just because they wanted to have a good day. Yes.
Oh.
And they were shocked that I wasn't as horrible as they expected me to be.
Oh.
And then on the putting green, I was just as good as they were. And they couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And I'm like, why can't you believe it? Like, I've lived in Florida most of my life. Like, putt-putt is like...
life.
Like, what? Like... Scotty still talks about it.
Oh, that is so funny.
He can't believe how good I am at putting.
Well, Scotty's a great golfer.
Yeah.
Scotty's a really good golfer, and he doesn't get to play anymore and stuff like that. But you were talking about having your kid find their thing, and that's just, there's nothing better than that. I have a grandchild that lives with me, JJ, and she's very to herself, little reflective, little nerdy, little different. Yep. And the first year I couldn't talk her into it. She's not into sports. She likes to sit on her phone and look at architectural videos and all kind of weird stuff, So oh my gosh, our world opened up when I finally talked her into, for the summer, I could almost cry about it, Emerald Coast Theater. Emerald Coast Theater her whole life has opened up. She's got friends that are crazy and weird like her, and you learn so much through theater. So absolutely. I'm just like so happy.
Absolutely.
I know what you mean. She's found her thing. Now I'm still trying to get Jet to find his thing. Yeah. He hasn't found his thing yet.
How old is he?
We tried football, which and he's 11.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It'll come. Yeah. Like for Cameron, it didn't come till he was 15.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It'll come. It's funny. Yeah. I thought of him earlier when you talked about people that are good at sort of marrying the art and the business. Mm-hmm. Our mutual friend Kevin Elliott comes to mind, right?
Yes.
He's great in that his mind can work in both arenas, and that's been really cool to see. And I like Kevin as an example of that.
Yeah, he's going to be on my podcast too.
Is he good? Oh, good. Yeah, because he's inspiring to other creatives in that way, and through his work, and so that's cool. I couldn't sit on your couch and not give him a shout out because I think of him as well.
I feel better. Like he, sometimes you talk about, you can think something about yourself, but if someone else tells you that about yourself, it lifts you up.
Absolutely.
And so that's what Kevin has done for me. Kevin pointed out to me what my business stood for and what I'm about. And I go, oh, you see that? So it's pretty cool. Right. He's pretty good about pointing out the best in people. And I am so grateful. And I knew that when I did this first season, I literally picked all the people that, even if they didn't know it or not, had made a real impact on my life. You've made a really big impact on my life. One, because of the way you treat my child. I mean, you know what that's about.
Sure.
You're good to my kid.
Yeah.
I don't care how old they are. Then you're up in my book.
Absolutely.
You are in my book, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love, I've heard other young people talk about the influence you had on them. Like my best friend Jody, her daughter Leah was in your theater class, and she loved it so much.
Yeah, Leah's doing great.
So you've done all these things. You've been a recruiter. You've been in the theatrics at the college. And
at Emerald Coast Theater.
At Emerald Coast Theater. And you're doing Panama City Comedy.
Yeah.
Anything next? What's next?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I've been, after the hurricane, I started writing a little bit. Oh yeah, I love your poetry, by the way. Thanks. Yeah, that was my sort of like art therapy post hurricane. And so that for me, do you ever find this? Some of the things I'm most proud of individually like no one else really cares, or like it's not a big deal to them.
For sure.
But so it's weird how there's that disconnect sometimes where people will compliment you on something like, "Oh my gosh, you're so amazing at that." Well, yeah, sure, that's easy. But the things that you somehow think are like, "Ooh." So for me, an example of that was because I have a weird history of music. With music, that's a whole other story. Like, I think when you're a little kid and you sing on pitch, people encourage you to. I think that does one thing, and when they don't, it's another thing. I was a kid in middle school church choir who had got the lead in the musical, but then had his solo given away to 2 other people. Like, it was bad. It wasn't until Gulf Coast.
I'm not good either.
It wasn't until Gulf Coast that I took voice lessons and got passable. But one of the goals I set for myself a year or 2 ago, and I'm not a big goal guy, but this was a tangible goal. I wanted to turn one of my poems into a song, and I did.
Oh,
and I actually have sang it publicly a few times.
Wow, I gotta hear that one day.
Okay. And for me, it was just to be able to say I did that. To be honest with you, I go back and listen to it a year later, and it's not near as good as I thought it was, which is true with comedy too. Aspiring comedians record every set because when the adrenaline wears off, I'll go back and listen to a recording of comedy, and it's either way better than I thought it was or not near as good as I thought it was. So this was a helpful thing for me to they say write things and put them away for a year and come back. I go back and listen to this thing, and it's not as good as I thought it was. But I was so emotionally connected to the content and to the process that it elevated it. And I'm still one of the things I'm most proud of. No one will ever care about it as much as I did, but it was just doing something that I never thought in a million years I could do. If I'm being honest, the comedy thing makes sense to me naturally as a progression from theater and solo performance and I get it. But for me to stand up in front of a group of strangers and sing a song that I wrote,
no way.
Never in a million years.
Yeah, I'd never do it.
So for me, that's a little thing. So I've got a couple others, and the first one came easy, and there's a couple others that I'm working on to try to turn into songs as well, because I think it was just sort of a one-off.
I've read your poetry. Yeah. I read a lot of your poetry, and some of it, and most of it's born out of something very tragic. I know. I've read about your father. I've read about the storm. I've read about gun violence, all those things that are very poignant and sometimes can be controversial.
Sure.
But that is one thing that's so cool about you. And it's funny, now that I think about it, all the people we've mentioned have a way of making the world brighter and better and sweeter without an edge to them, without pushing people away. And that's a beautiful thing. And I love people like that. I love you. I'm so grateful you were here. So we're going to end our time together, unless you can think of anything you want to tell me, because I'm going to ask you one question before we go.
Other than I just appreciate you. I've told you publicly and privately, but I'd love to say it again. You have been sort of an inspiration to me with your personal story, going from, like you said, driving in a $500 car and, raising your kids and then building the business that you've built and done it in the way that you've done it, and putting community first. And I don't know my why when it comes to Panama City Comedy, but I do look to you and what you've done with Beachy Beach. I've said this a few times in writing. I've said that, that comedy is the vehicle and community is the goal. And that's really just a way of me sort of reworking lessons I've learned from watching you over the years. And your health journey is inspiring to me and so many others. You know what I mean? I'm that kind of guy that's like, oh, I'm going to be in the best shape of my life when I'm 40. Oh, when I'm 41, when I'm 42, when I'm 40. Well, I'm up to 47, approaching 50 now. And I know, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can do it. So, I know sometimes people may think it's strange to, post whatever, on exercise stuff, but it is another way that you inspire me personally.
Thank you.
So it's mutual, and kudos, and
thank you. I appreciate
just what you're doing with this, and I love your family and have for a long time.
I appreciate that so much. Makes me so happy. And so I always ask people before they get off, because this is my happy ass life, by the way, but sometimes life can get tough.
Absolutely.
So has there been a time in your life where things were tough? How'd you find your happy in the hard? What do you go to? What is the thing that elevates you out of a tough time?
I have to go analog. Like, I have to just like journal. I hate that so much of our life now is tied into, like, I can't even check my email without having my cell phone handy because I have the 2-part authentication that I have to do 10 different times. So I literally can't turn off my phone if I need to do something else. But for me, it's either getting into nature, it's traveling, it's it's like journaling with just a pen and a thing. I have to unplug. And I knew that about myself even before things got the way they are, even pre-social media. I knew that about myself. I love to travel. I love to go places I've never been before and just wander around. I have a horrible sense of direction, but I love to get lost somewhere. Even just somewhere, like I was in Chattanooga last week and just walking around a new place. I love traveling because time slows down when you get out of your routine, right? If the most valuable commodity we have is time, the only way to trick time is to break your routine. So that, I got goosebumps just saying that. That's the trick. So that's my reset. My family and I are gonna go down to Key West over Thanksgiving, and we've never been before, and that's what we plan to do. Is just the Keys in general, but just to unplug and no agenda, no plans. Just go somewhere we've never been before, with just us. Nothing we have to do for the week.
That's awesome.
So that's my thing, and I need to do it. I need to do it more often. I've been walking a lot more now, like just in the mornings. I'm a morning person like you. I can get up early. And so if I ever start, really exercising like you are, I know that it would have to be first thing in the morning. But I'm wired that way. I get up early. So I got to go analog. I have to get in nature. I have to travel to slow down time. And it doesn't have to be far. It could just be an hour away.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jason. I have so enjoyed this time with you. It's been such a pleasure to me. And I know everybody else has enjoyed it too. I want to, one more time, thank Beachy Beach. Thank my precious friend, Kitty Stewart. And thank Brian Yormack for believing in this and making it so the whole world could be happy asses. So do you know what I say when I get off?
I don't.
Okay. Well, I say, be sweet, y'all. You want to try it?
Oh, sure.
Let's try it.
To the camera or to you?
Yeah, to the camera. Yeah.
Yeah. Be sweet, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.